Right, so UFC fight card coming up this weekend. It's quite a good one actually. Long Island, you've got Weidman against Gastelum in the main event. But I've gone through the entire fight card because I'm making some more terrible bets because it's what I like to do. So, starting off, I've actually done the entire card because I've just been through watching the weigh-ins and had a look at the fighters, and these are my picks, and I'll tell you why. So I've got Burgos, who's taking on Pepe. Burgos, I've got taking this one. Because he's making his debut, but he is 9-0 right now. He's got 2 titles in other organisations, 5 first-round finishes. He's got a size advantage. I think that he probably gets it done, maybe by decision, because I think these are the lighter guys. But I think that he definitely beats out Pepe. And then you've got rank number 12 in the heavyweight division, which it's not the strongest division in the world, is it? You've got Timothy Johnson fighting Albini. Johnson is a Division 1 wrestler. He's got very good submissions. He's very strong. Albini's a bit untested. I think that Johnson definitely gets it done in this one, either by decision or submission. Also, he's part 1 of my powerful moustache bet, because he's got some moustache game that is just powerful. If you see him, you'll see why. You've got Kelleher against Vera. Now, was Vera, he just upset Brad Pickett in London. I still think that he made hard work of that for the most part. He got the knockout in the last round, and up until then, Pickett actually looked pretty good. I don't think Pickett's looked good in a while before then. I think that Kelleher, he's on a 7-fight win streak. He's looking very good. I think he's a much tougher test for Vera at this point than Pickett presented to him. So I think that Kelleher gets the win, probably by knockout. Kennedy against Bochniak. Now this one, I've looked at the betting odds. This one's going to be a bit of an upset, I think, because I've got Bochniak. Because Kennedy's making his debut. I think he gets overwhelmed by Bochniak. I really do. I think Bochniak is the slightly better fighter in this one, but I could be wrong. The betting odds tell me I'm wrong anyway, because that's a massive upset. Sherman against Gabrowski. Again, you've got Sherman. He's got a much better record than Gabrowski's. He went 12 fights unbeaten until he got to Bellator in the semi-finals, the heavyweight tournament, and he got knocked out. Who did he get knocked out by? Probably Let It, yeah. But either way, he hasn't looked good in quite a while, really. And yeah, so I just think that Sherman, he's the much better choice in this one, really. There you've got Oliveira against Lafleur. Lafleur, I'm taking this one purely because he's got a massive size advantage. They're both quite evenly matched skill-wise, but I'm going with the bigger guy on this one. So I think that Lafleur takes him out, probably by knockout. Anders against Natal. Anders, I'm pretty confident on this one. Anders, former linebacker. He's got big power. Natal tends to struggle with power. If you look at his fight against Tim Boesch, you'll see evidence of that. You've got Zelensky Dos Santos against Good. This one's a bit of a toss-up, but obviously Dos Santos has got 12 knockouts, 5 in the first round. He's a very powerful fighter. I think that he gets the knockout on that one. Almeida against Rivera. Now again, I just think that Almeida, whilst he's a very good fighter, Rivera is a very powerful wrestler. He's on a 19-fight win streak, which there's a reason for that. They aren't in the UFC, obviously. He might have fought some less than good opponents, but it's still a 19-fight win streak is still impressive, whatever you say. And Rivera is just a very good wrestler. I think his wrestling gets it done. He takes the decision. Vellante against Cummins. Now, Cummins is the underdog in this. I'm not quite sure why, because I think Cummins, if he sticks to his wrestling, he's got this one in the bag, and I think that's what he's going to do. I think his wrestling is going to be the difference maker, because rather than comparing their wins on this one, I look at their losses. You look at Vellante, and he has lost to Moldano, Latifi, Tom Lawler, and obviously he's beaten by Shogun recently. Now, big respect to Shogun, love the guy, but he probably should have retired quite a while ago. And if you're losing to guys like that are mid-level guys, then that's not good. You look at the guys that Cummins has lost to. He's only lost to 4 people in his UFC career, being Daniel Cormier, Glover Teixeira, Ivan St. Preux, and Little Nog. And obviously, Little Nog, yeah, he should have maybe retired a bit ago. There's an argument for that. But Ivan St. Preux, very much in his prime, big, powerful guy. You've got Glover Teixeira, who's number 3 or number 2 in the light heavyweight division. Daniel Cormier, who's only ever been beaten once in his career. No shame in any of those losses. You put Cummins against anybody who isn't a name, and he generally wins. He just smothers them with his wrestling, and I think he does that against Vellante, and probably gets the finish, TKO, I think, ground and pound. There's some good value on that one in the betting odds anyway. And then obviously next up you've got Bermudez against Elkins. Again, this one I'm taking just because Elkins is absolutely huge, and he should pick Bermudez off, pretty easily from range, and that's that's what I'm going with. Obviously, the bigger guy doesn't always win, but I think that if they've got a similar skill set, they usually do. There you've got the main event, Weidman against Gastelum. And I've been going back and forth on this one, but I think that I like Weidman in this fight, actually, because, yeah, he is on a 3-fight skid, but if you look at the guys that he lost to, it was obviously, he got knocked out by Luke Rockhold, he threw a spinning back kick, which is not really in his wheelhouse. I don't know why he did that, and it cost him his belt, cost him a loss. He then lost to Yoel Romero, and he was winning that fight up until he got hit with that flying knee. Now, I'm not taking anything away from Romero. He set that up, and he set it up really nicely. He feinted with that a few times to see where his head was going to go, and then he kind of laid the trap, and he got the knockout. It was fantastic. But up until that point, he was losing that fight, and Weidman was looking good. The only fight I think he really legitimately was looking quite bad in was the one against Mousasi. Mousasi's an elite level striker, and he looked like it in that fight, and I think that that was the only one where he arguably looked quite bad. And then you've got Gastelum's on a win streak, obviously, in middleweight, and he's done very well. He smashed Tim Kennedy, but you've got to remember that Kennedy, he did have 2 fights cancelled in a row, so he was more or less in a training camp for something like 28 weeks. I could be wrong on the actual length of time there, but I know that it was a silly amount of time. He basically did back-to-back training camps, which could, have contributed to his fatigue in the second round, because you look at the first round of that fight and Tim Kennedy is winning that fight. He's smothering him. Not to take anything away from Kelvin, he did a great job, and then Kelvin obviously smashes Vitor Belfort. But let's be honest here, Belfort should have retired a long time ago. He's 40 years old, hasn't looked good since he stopped taking TRT, and let's be perfectly honest here, Weidman is a much tougher test than any of those guys. And if Gastelum smashes Weidman, yes, the hype is real, get behind him. But I just think that Weidman's got a significant size advantage for a start. He's quite a large middleweight, whereas Gastelum's a small middleweight, and I just think that Weidman, he's got the power and the size to overpower Kelvin with his wrestling, and he's going to use his size advantage, take him down to the ground. I think he gets a TKO stoppage in the third round, probably using elbow strikes. So with that being said, obviously I've got my bets on. I've got my powerful moustache bet, which obviously, sorry, I forgot to mention that Cummins is the second part of that, because he's also rocking powerful moustache game at the moment. I've got Johnson and Cummins both to win. That's about 2-1, so I put £5 on that. I don't like betting silly amounts. But that's 15 quid. I think that's a pretty safe bet, if I'm perfectly honest. And if you add Weidman into that mix, you get 6-1 on that, so that's some pretty good odds. The main card picks, that's a 7-fold, so that's from kind of Oliveira onwards down the card. 135-1, that's definitely worth a quid. And the whole card on the outcomes that I've just been through, 12-fold, it's 1,325-1, so that's worth £1. So again, the accumulators will very rarely ever come off, hardly ever. That's why they're terrible bets, because there's a reason the odds are so high, because there's always going to be one that goes the wrong way. But maybe worth a quid. People play the lottery after all. But anyways, that's it. Adds a bit of spice to the fights, and I'll enjoy them. I hope you do too.